Kabanenko, how would you describe this first year of invasion from a military perspective?
Just a lot of lessons we should learn from this year. Several of them. Let me touch on key of them. First of all, it's of course it's intensive warfare. We should understand what this is. Very high intensive warfare, high intensive war with just huge use of ammunition, different types of ammunition, and of course it means what societies, Western societies, not only our country, we should be prepared for such type of war, and of course have abilities to quickly increase our industrial capacities to produce needed equipment, weapon, ammunition to effectively fight and win this war. Second is, from my perspective, it's intensive use of different unmanned vehicles, different types, and this brings, changes in not only in tactics of warfare, but in the nature of warfare. And some elements of warfare change forever because of use of drones, different types of drones. And of course, resilience, extraordinary resilience, what is demonstrated by our society based on Western identity of our people, of our nation, which brings a lot of, because our people really, our nation, I would say, tries to do their best to assist our defense. First of all, a lot of people, they become soldiers, officers, they join to our armed forces, territorial defense units, National Guard, so it's security and defense bodies, and a lot of people, they do their best to support our defense industry, businesses also related to defense, as well as a huge volunteer movement should be touched on, which does a lot to assist our troops, different means. So it's a lot of things has been done, and we are looking forward for our counteroffensive and to the victory in this war.
How would you describe the support of Romania in this first year of war?
They appreciate that. They really appreciate in different fields, not only in the military, but in the humanitarian, because of support of our communities, particular communities, what after Russian autocracies, for example, in Bucha and other cities. So it's important for us, and of course, again, I would stress we appreciate that.
Do you think the war will be decided on the battlefield, or will be a political solution before?
That's from my perspective. Right now, it's difficult to predict, but Ukrainians are oriented to the victory. We need the victory. We need to liberate our territories because they belongs to us. This is our all. We should liberate that, and after that, we'll see. It's possible after victory. It's possible to negotiate some aspects, but we should liberate it. So first, it's critically important.
What do you think about the security challenges of the Republic of Moldova?
That's they exist, and I think Russia can launch the conflict around Transnistria, but I think first of all, the unity of Western society, unity and support from the Romania. Romania has sent a clear message after these, Russian steps, and of course it will depend on the outcome of the war in Ukraine. If Ukraine will survive, and I'm absolutely sure on that, so it would be very difficult for Russia to launch new conflict in Transnistria. So it's a lot of things depends on our joint efforts, Ukraine and Western community, synchronization of our efforts with our military operations, equipment, weapon, training, and so on. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, there were recent talks about the UK sending Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine. Do you think that is possible, and when could we see such missiles in Ukraine? How could that change the dynamic on the battlefield?
I've read the same stories that you've read. Of course, I still work for NATO, so I'm not engaged in the decisions that the UK MOD deliver. But I have seen in the UK a absolute determination to support Ukraine in every way that they can. And so it would not surprise me if we were looking at Storm Shadow, which is, as you know, a cruise missile capable of, striking in depth.
How does this past year change the security environment in Europe and also across the world?
Well, there's two answers to that. I think we're all horrified by the events that have unfolded. Conversely, it has made NATO and the alliance much stronger. Decisions that people had been delaying on committal of defence funding, on better, stronger plans for the deterrence and defence in the Euro-Atlantic area. That's all just happening. And I remind people, when you look at the summit declaration that followed Madrid in 22, 71 commitments in that 11-page document. And NATO is delivering on all of them. So it's making NATO stronger, making the Euro-Atlantic area safer, and also, I think, has led to a very unified response in relation to Ukraine.
There are a lot of talks about fighter jets for Ukraine and the long-range missile. Do you think we will see fighter jets NATO fighter jets in Ukraine?
I genuinely don't know, but what I do see is a pattern that you draw a line and you think above that it's too complicated, it's too difficult, it's too technically complicated, and then you come back a month later and the line is higher. I can absolutely understand why Ukrainian armed forces, why President Zelensky is asking for aircraft. I know nations are looking at it. I know nations are training pilots so that they are capable of flying these aircraft should they ever receive them. But, I think these are political decisions based on the best judgment, a best assessment on Ukraine's ability to support them, fly them, and we'll see where it goes.
What can you tell us about Republic of Moldova? It is in danger, Moldova?
I think, Moldova is such an interesting country because I think it's been very well led recently. I think they're right to be worried that if Russia had succeeded in taking Ukraine quickly, then Moldova would have been next. And I think it's a country with a choice to make. It's a choice that you see playing out in the newspapers. But I think Moldova, I have never travelled to Moldova. I'd like to go there. I think it will join in the long run, the European League of Nations and be very successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Happy?
Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Hodges, what do you think of the current dynamic in Ukraine? Do you think that Crimea is still going to get back to Ukraine's control by the summer?
So Ukraine is absolutely going to win and to win means they get full restoration of all of their territory, all of it. I believe that by the end of this summer, they can liberate Crimea, which is the most important thing. It's the decisive terrain. If we, the West, stick together, if we deliver everything that we said we would, and if we deliver more long-range precision weapons, absolutely, Ukraine will liberate Crimea by the end of this summer. And then I think Donbass comes later. The key is Crimea.
This morning, the Russian MOD said in a press release that Ukraine is going to launch an offensive in Transnistria. Of course, that Moldova said everything is okay and asked the people to be calm. Do you think this is the start of something big? What should Romania do if Russia attacks Moldova?
Well, first of all, nobody that speaks for the Russian government has any credibility. They have been exposed over and over and over. I think most people now realize that when Russia says something, it is meant to distract or to create a false narrative to cause us to hesitate. For sure, Russia would love to have Moldova back, Georgia, they would love to do that, but they don't have the capability. After 9 years, they still haven't captured Bakhmut. Their navy goes nowhere near the Ukrainian coast. Their airplanes are terrified of flying over Ukraine. So the idea that somehow Russia would capture or even invade Moldova is, I think, a fantasy. I think it is so unlikely. For sure, however, they will continue to try to create problems for the government of Moldova, to create distractions, to exploit vulnerabilities where people may not trust their own government. So that, of course, they'll continue doing.
There is an act in the United States Congress regarding the Black Sea Strategy Act. What do you think this strategy would look like from the Romanian point of view, military point of view?
Well, first of all, this is great news because part of our problem over the last decades is that the United States never had a strategy for the region. We didn't think about Ukraine or Romania or Turkey or Georgia in a from a strategic standpoint. So finally, Senator Shaheen, a Democrat, and Senator Romney, a Republican, together crafted legislation that will require the U.S. government to develop a comprehensive strategy that involves diplomacy, information, and economic investment, not only military. So this is a very, very good development, and I would expect it will help us, or it will have to include, of course, us repairing our relationship with Turkey, us finding ways to help with economic investment in Ukraine, Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania, supporting international law, freedom of navigation, for example. These are the kind of things that will happen. And I think it's also the idea of a long-term security relationship with Ukraine, eventually in NATO, but in the meantime, we can focus on some sort of a security relationship between the United States and Ukraine, which will be a bridge to membership. For sure, Romania is going to be the center of gravity of this Black Sea strategy. It's, you know, where you sit on the map, you and Moldova, of course, with the Danube River, Port of Constanta, it's in the ideal location, and of course, the Romanian government and the Minister of Defense have done such a good job to continue to improve security in this region. So this strategy is a good idea. It's going to make things better for everybody there, except for Russia.
Do you think the presence of American military in region Black Sea should be supplemented?
Yes. Of course, under the Montreal Convention, there's a limit on how long a non-littoral nation can have a warship here. So for the U.S., that means 21 days. Of course, you go through the process with Turkey, our NATO ally. But I think with a serious Black Sea strategy and a better understanding of what the requirements are here, I think you'll see an increase in the U.S. Navy presence, as well as the Royal Navy, the German Navy, others who are not littoral states. So that's one thing that will increase. Of course, the Army and the Air Force, the U.S. Army and Air Force are already in Romania, I think in a pretty significant way. We have a division headquarters, you have a brigade from the 101st Airborne Division, you have NATO Enhanced Forward Presence Battle Groups. The U.S. Air Force has a drone squadron that flies out of Kapiotr. So it's already a pretty strong U.S. military presence here. Where I would like to see us have more, it would be Bulgaria. I want to see continued under the state partnership program The state of North Carolina, of course, is the partner for Moldova. I'd love to see North Carolina do more exercises and have more presence in Moldova. But just as important as increasing U.S. presence is that all the nations of the Black Sea region, Moldova, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Georgia, Turkey, do more things with each other. I mean, that's the big difference. Why there was so much NATO attention on the Baltic Sea is because those countries are together in their messaging in Washington and Brussels. You don't hear that from Black Sea nations. So I think better cooperation between the nations on messaging, intelligence sharing, would also elevate the security and prosperity in the Black Sea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.